Today I'm going to do a book review of one of the most important finance books I've ever read and one of the most influential books in my own life. Probably it was more influential than it potentially needed to be because I had read it so early in my financial journey and my journey of wealth building and education about wealth building. So this book is just a remarkable piece of literature. Now, I think the structure of this review is going to be where first I'll talk a little bit about the book and some of the key parts of the book, and then I'll talk about my thoughts about the book. And included in the discussion about my thoughts about the book, I'm going to talk about how I first came to read this book, how it even came to into my life. And I'll do that probably for all the books I review, if I continue reviewing books. But let's see how this goes. So, The Richest Man in Babylon was written by author George S. Clason. It was written in 1926, so it's not an ancient book. It was written right before the Great Depression. It was written in the Roaring Twenties in 1926. Obviously, it's nonfiction, and it's a pretty light read. I remember it being light, and it is very light. It's only 144 pages. Only 144 pages, this book. So the way this book is structured is it's almost like a set of parables or quotes or like wisdom packages that are set in ancient times but that are applicable everywhere, really. And so, I mean, this was written in 26, but it's set in Babylon. I'm not sure why the author decided to do that, but it attempts to lend some kind of credibility to it. But what I don't like is if you tell people about the book and they think it's an ancient book and then they realize it was written in the 20s, it's a little weird. I think they had a fascination with Babylon and Egypt during that time. So I think in the 1920s in my hometown in California, there's a theater that looks just like I think an Egyptian theater. I think, and it was probably built around that time, back in the older days, in the early 20th century. So I think they had a fascination with that era, but that's kind of besides the point. So it's set in Babylon, but it was written in the 20s. It was written to a 20s audience. It was going to be a book written for people in the 20s and 30s, but the author, I don't think he knew, obviously, didn't know that the Great Depression was going to happen. But it ended up being an extremely popular book. It's still in print today, it's still sold today, it's still read today, it's still loved today. And it became a very, very popular book. And so the book is structured in basically a couple of like sub books, you could say. And within each of these sub books, there's these wisdom packages or parables. So the first sub book is called Seven Cures for a Lean Purse. Seven Cures for a Lean Purse. And then the author proceeds to go one by one with these seven and provides examples in story form. And the stories are very interesting. They're set in Babylon, and from what I remember, there was two friends. So there were two friends. I forgot their names. Let's take a look here. Uh, yeah, so there was a rich man named Arcot. He is the richest man in Babylon, and two friends go and ask him for advice. They go and they ask him for advice. They're sitting on like a wall or sitting somewhere, observing how rich their city is, how rich Babylon is. And they talk amongst each other. Oh my goodness, we labor daily, we do our work, and we do good work too. We're not doing shitty work. We're doing good quality work, and we do it every day. But somehow, somehow they don't have any money and they're pissed. So they go to their old friend Arcot from back in the day. They say, back in the day, Arcot, we're back in the day playing, but now Arcot's rich as fuck. So they go and he explains it all to them. So very interesting. So here are the seven cures for a lean purse. And when you read the book, it's going to be Arcot explaining it to them and to you. So the first cure, let's begin. The first cure. Start thy purse to fattening. The second cure, control thy expenditure. The third cure, make thy gold multiply. The fourth cure, guard thy treasures from loss. The fifth cure, make thy dwelling a profitable investment. The sixth cure, ensure a future income. And the seventh cure, increase thy ability to earn. Now let's go over these again and talk about them. The first cure again, start thy purse to fattening. What does that mean? That means start saving, dude. Start saving money. Start putting it away now. Just like I talked about, just like the stuff I talked about in the previous video on the two stages of investing, where you need the accumulation phase and then you have the returns phase. If you don't have any money now, speculating like a lot of the people are doing now and talking about now, Gen Z, millennials too, my own generation, millennials, Gen Y, millennial slash Gen Y, and then the younger generation, Gen Z, just all the speculation that's happening. Well, we need to stop being focused on turning the little amount we have into more and start just building up the initial amount until it gets to a sufficient level. So that's what this guy's saying. You need to start your purse to fattening. You need to take money and save it every month, every week, every day. When you earn money, you should be putting it away. The second, control thy expenditures, obviously. Control your expenses. If you live in Babylon, if you live in New York, if you live in LA, Miami, Chicago, San Francisco, Houston, anywhere in the world, London, you have a big economy, you have a lot of places to spend money, and you have people advertising, working hard to get you to spend money. So you gotta be mindful, gotta be a little robust, and make sure you only spend what you need to spend, especially in the beginning. Um, then the third cure is make thy gold multiply. Obviously, that's the whole point of investing. Now, you should be investing always. I'm not saying wait until you have a ton of money to invest, just because we divide things up into two stages, where stage one is the accumulation phase and stage two is the investing phase. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be investing in stage one. Imagine you have a 401k. That 401k should be invested prudently in an excellent way. That way your money continues growing. What I'm saying there is that you shouldn't obsess about getting the best returns until you have enough where it actually matters. Until you have enough where it actually matters. If until you then you should focus on accumulating, lower your expenses, earn more, save more, get more money, more money until you have a large enough investment. But your goal should be multiplying all the time. So even from your first dollar into your 401k, that money should be invested and working for you. It shouldn't be in stupid conservative investments that are not aligned to your risk. Now, obviously, these things need to be aligned to your goals, to your risk tolerance, to your psychological ability to accept risk. And then there's so much research on behavioral economics and behavioral psychology that talks about all the foolish things that investors do to kind of fuck themselves over in the long run. Think about how exposed you are to those things. It's a very complex process. And of course, be careful taking advice from anyone on YouTube. Don't take my advice like that. I have no responsibility to you. I don't know you. So that's insane if you just are on YouTube and taking people's advice. But what I do want you to understand is that is that you do want your goal to be multiplying in an investment that is appropriate for you, but don't obsess over it. So as adults, we can have two different thoughts at the same time. One, understanding that yeah, investing is key. I shouldn't have all my money in cash. That's what my father did. My own father, he was an ultra conservative investor, meaning he wasn't an investor at all. He wasn't an investor at all. He earned a decent income and he saved pretty well. But if he had invested, he would be doing very well, very well, if his money was invested just at a reasonable rate. But instead, he was so conservative. He kept all his money in cash, and that over time, not only did his money not grow, right, but his money decreased because inflation ate away at it. So over 20 or 30 years, when your money's not growing and you're only relying on your ability to earn and save, you're just not going to have that much money. But even at a modest growth rate, like 8% or 10%, your money's gonna do very solidly. over time. So, yes, the third cure is correct. Make that gold multiply, invest your money. Make it multiply. Don't sit there and be super conservative with your money and just, oh, grab your income, take a portion, save it, and then don't, and then that's it. No, the money has to be working for you as well. Obviously, all these things have to be within your own life, within your own risk tolerance and your own goals. But generally speaking, you want your goal to multiply. That's a universal rule. And that makes sense. And then the fourth cure, guard thy treasures from loss. That's Warren Buffett's rule number one of investing. And this rule is grounded in mathematics and an understanding, a deep understanding of reality. So, rule number one, don't lose money. It's very hard to make money and it's very easy to lose money. And when you lose it, it's very hard to make it back. Say you have $100 and you lose 50%, and now you only have $50. A 50% gain on that 50 would bring you back only to 75 bucks. You need 100% gain on that 50 to get you back to 100. Double the loss. You lost 50%, but you need 100% gain to get you back. Losing money is a very terrible thing. It's better to stand still than to go backwards with money. Because when you lose money, all the money you lost stops working for you. Not only did you lose the money, but all that money was working for you, and now it's not working for you anymore. So you should be very careful about losses. Be very careful about losses as well. It's okay to have volatility, but pure losses where you have no chance of returning the money, that's a very risky bet. So, the fifth cure, make thy dwelling a profitable investment. This is interesting, where he talks about don't rent, buy a house, buy a property, and pay it off. That way, you don't even have to. In your old age, you don't have to. You just you assuming you live in a place where that's possible. You have property rights. So this is written for 1920s in the United States, but in other places in Soviet Russia, this would not make in one sense it would make sense because everyone there had a house and it was free, but it was provided for you by the government. Not everyone, but most people had a house. But you couldn't just, you have less autonomy with your own property, and there was no such thing as property rights. You didn't own your house. But assuming you can own your house and your own property, that's great. If you can grab your own property and pay it off, and you only have to pay property taxes to the king instead of also paying mortgage to the bank, where you just have to pay your property taxes, meaning you never really own the property fully outright, right? If you have to still pay someone something, you don't own it, right? Owning means I don't have to pay anyone at all. So if I own this cup, no one's asking me to give more money for this cup. But if I own a house, I have to still pay year after year. So it really makes you think what ownership is, what it means. But that's beyond the point. So we are saying that you should probably, buy a house and pay it off. That's what Arcad is saying in his advice. So I think that makes sense for most people. For most people, that probably makes sense, but not for everyone. Again, not for everyone. Some people may be better off renting, but generally speaking, long term, it's better to own your own place of living. And then the seventh cure is increase thy ability to earn. Increase your earning power. Classic and universal. Increase your ability to earn, of course. Educate yourself. Learn how to do better work, how to collaborate with people better, how to be a better communicator, how to be a better leader, how to be a better team member. Learn actual technical skills. Upskill, truly, and increase your ability to earn. And then courageously go and try to earn. Don't be scared. Put yourself out there. So, those are the seven cures for a lean purse. Now, after that, we talk about the five laws of gold in the book. Now, Clason talks about the five laws of gold, and it's still Arcot giving the advice. And these are the five rules of money, basically. And I'm going to go through them in the same format. So, the first law of gold cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. That saying just means save 10%, dude. Save 10% of what you make at least. Simple. Classic universal rule. Makes sense, but try to save more. 10% may not be enough. Do 20%, do 30%. The more you can do, the better. Buffers. Buffers against uncertainty. We need more buffers against the uncertainty in our own lives. Second, gold laboreth diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. For people who, meaning for people who are prudent investors, who understand investing and deploy their capital in prudent ways and are able to manage risk in an appropriate and prudent manner, they will see their money grow over time. There may be volatility, but over time, your investments will grow. That's especially true in economies like ours where there's just growth. There seems to be growth driven by technological innovation and relative peace. Now, there are tail risks where the unbelievably important and like just incredibly important foundational assumptions and approaches and ways of thinking and cultural norms we have in our society where those could potentially go away in some scenarios, and if they do, then the wealth we have, which is underpinned by that, underpinned by our freedom, underpinned by our liberty, underpinned by just the way we think in Western civilization, period, that if that goes away and there's a different approach to living and life and governing, things could change. But for now, it seems like we've discovered a path that allows humans to kind of just keep getting more wealthy and more wealthy as a society. So, if you live in that world and you're just invested well, you're going to be doing okay in terms of the growth most of the time. So, the third law of gold: gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. So meaning, hey, dude, get advice from smart people. Don't be a moron and have a very long term approach. That's kind of what that one's saying. Then the fourth law of gold: gold slippeth away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar, or with which or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. Let me read that one again. Gold slippeth away from the man who invested in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar, or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. Meaning, dude, don't invest money in businesses that you don't understand. Don't invest in stuff you don't understand, and don't invest in things that people who are actually good with money are not investing in. So if you have a group of people that are great with money, they understand the current world and they're good with money. They understand the modern world and they're good with money, and they're saying, look, this is a trash investment. This is nonsense. You probably should be prudent and kind of take a step back and take the conservative approach and agree with them until you can robustly for yourself show that it's not and you've discovered something new. So that's one thing, and the other one is you have to be familiar. That's why those are intertwined. It's that familiarity that gives you the confidence, that gives you the important confidence to know that you're investing in an appropriate thing. And if you don't have that confidence, whether you're investing yourself or whether you're investing with a family member, whether you're investing with an actual advisor who may or may not have a fiduciary responsibility towards you, no matter what, you need to have confidence in your investments. You need to have understanding of what you're doing. And if you don't have that, you need to educate yourself. It's not hard. It's not hard. You could do it. If you're watching this video, you could easily do it. And I'll help you do it. Over time, I'll help you do it. I'll make the right videos. Now, let's keep going. Last one, fifth law of gold. Gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who followeth the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to his own inexperience and romantic desires in investment. Wow, that's a beautiful one. He's basically saying avoid get rich quick schemes, avoid tricksters, avoid charlatans, and don't be too confident in your own stupid ideas. Take it easy, dude. Be prudent, manage your risk, and be a good investor. So that's the kind of That's the framework of the book. And now let me talk about how this book kind of came into my life. So the book came into my life when I was in college. My first, I think, year or two in college, I worked in administrative office in the college, and just because I needed some extra money, and I had a pretty decent admin job that I worked at like 10 hours, 15 hours a week, and there was a guy that recommended it to me, a very interesting man, calm man, recommended it to me, and um, I had always been interested in money investing, but when he recommended that book to me, the title really appealed to me. Something about it made it seem eternal and wise. I didn't even know it was written in the 20s. Only once I started reading did I realize it was written in the 20s. So I read the book when I was around, yeah, so I was like under 20 years old, I would say. And I was 19 actually, yeah, I remember I was 19. Um, I just turned 19. So it was a long time ago, well over a decade ago now. And basically it really solidified a lot of the stuff I had been reading probably since I was in high school. So for 4 years in high school, I've been interested in finance and investing and thinking about why my family didn't have any money and why we were what like just a very insecure feeling about finances and more of a feeling that I myself didn't quite understand. um, I wasn't even thinking, okay, we live in a capitalist society, all that stuff. I was just thinking, doesn't seem like we're in a secure place. It doesn't seem like I'm in a secure place. It seems like money's important here in this place I live in, but I don't have much of it, and I'd like to get more of it. And I wanted to understand how I can get more of it. So a lot my entire start with personal finance and reading about these things and thinking about these things is rooted from a place of insecurity. It started from a place of fear. It started from not a great place, and that drove me for a long time to continue in that sphere. But at some point, it changed a little. And like I said, if it's just fear driving you, if it's not wanting to be hurt that's driving you to improve yourself and improve any aspect of your life, unfortunately, that's not going to be good enough. As much as I don't want to say that's true, it is true that will never, it'll never be enough. Not wanting to hurt and wanting to run away from fear is never going to be enough. It's just going to always make you miserable because you're gonna start on the path, and then once you're not hurting anymore, you're gonna stop, and you'll never really get anywhere. It's just a pathetic way to go. You need something far deeper and far more meaningful, something that will sustain you, even when the initial hurt is gone and the initial romanticism of everything is gone. It has to be something deeper. Uh, Probably has to be something out inside and outside yourself at the same time. It has to involve helping people. It's a complex thing. But back to the book. So I read the book, started in a place of insecurity. I read the book, it deeply influenced me. It made me realize that whenever I earned money, I had to save. So from then on, literally from then on, even if whether I had bills to pay, no matter what, I would fucking go overdo all my bills, but I would save money. I wouldn't care. Basically. So whenever I had a job that had a 401k, I would put money in my 401k. I didn't care if I had debt. I didn't care if I had 20% credit card bills. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care. I would religiously follow that rule. I would follow it religiously, and I had faith. I had real faith in that rule. I knew that the moment I stop, the moment I stop, I'm putting 10% of what I earn. The moment I stop doing that, that's gonna be bad because my parents never could save any money. My dad did. My dad did, but my mom could never save. But no, I take it back. Why am I saying my parents could never save? My mom always had trouble saving. My dad was able to save, but he never invested well. He never invested at all. And that was another troubling thing. And so I invested aggressively, hyper aggressively. I followed that rule on investing very intensely in my own life. And to an extreme extent, to points where I had no cash. I had literally no cash at all. I was living on credit cards where all my money was invested. and I have money and I'm stressed as fuck because I have no cash. So I have a ton of money now and I'm stressed at that point. I'm investing, the investments are doing well. I should feel secure, but I feel less secure than ever. So everything has to be attenuated too. Everything has to be filtered too. So there's extremes, and it's okay to take on the extreme path at times. It's perfectly okay. And it's okay to be obsessive with things at times, and it's okay to have a faith-based approach. I think you need faith. No, it's not okay, it's required. You have to have faith if you're gonna do anything. You just need faith. Without faith you'll never get anywhere, because you will always stop too early. You need to trust that things will work out, that your energies, that your efforts, that the grinding, that the grind, that the intensity, that all that shit you're doing is building up towards something. And you need to have faith that it'll happen one day. And you don't see it in the early stages. You only see later on. Once you see the results, it's easier. But so that book had a profound impact on me. That book had an intense and profound impact on me. And whenever I talk to people today, whenever I recommend stuff today, so I recommend books to a few of my friends, and that's the first book I recommend whenever they say they're getting into personal finance, or maybe something's happening where they're actually gonna get a ton of money, or they got a job where they're earning a ton of money now, and they ask me for advice, and yeah, that's the first book I point them to. That's the first book I point them to, and I think that's a great start for anyone. I think it's a great start for anyone because you don't need the technical crap. You don't need the technical crap that you're gonna find in other books. 90% of it is the mindset. The mindset of, dude, I need to put money away for myself. It's almost a spiritual matter, right? Am I gonna put money away for me whenever I earn some money? And that was the important one for me. And then the control your expenses are important. That's very important. And being just everything there is important. It's just an excellent book. I deeply recommend this book. I think that um, if everyone in the United States and the Western world read this book, we'd be a much more robust and better society. Read it and understood it. So I highly recommend this book. It's a short read too. It's only 144 pages, and I think the laws are written in a very old English, but the actual book is not written like that. So when all these like taketh, schmaketh, all that stuff, thy gold, that's not how the book is written. The law is written like that. I guess Clason decided to kind of make it sound old school, right? Using the Babylon name, he tried to make it sound old school using an older version of English, but the book is not written like that. It's written in normal 20s English, which is very reasonable. Maybe there's even an updated translation, but 20s English is reasonable. Any person that knows how to read in the English language should be okay with that. If you're above, like, I don't know, some grade, whatever grade, I don't know, if you're not a new reader. So decent book, not complex, all about the mindset. It just gives you the mindset. Highly recommended.